So I kind of wanted to talk about why I'm interested in international tax law and international tax issues. I did my undergrad in it was officially my concentration was in social sciences, and my field of study was in social sciences, and my concentration was in government. However, I didn't really take government classes per se. I think Shakespeare can be interpreted sometimes to be government. I think studying philosophy can certainly be interpreted to be government sometimes, especially if you're studying the ideas of John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, even Hegel, who I wrote my thesis on. And going into law school, I was really interested in society and philosophy and law and how they all confluence and work together. My parents are actually anthropologists, so it made a lot of sense for me to be interested in this subject because I kind of grew up all my life. They and my friends were interested in these ideas and how they work together. And I'm really hoping that I can sort of convey about why that's interesting to me. So I went into law school, JD in Texas, thinking about this. Of course, when you get to JD, things are a little different because, you have to sort of focus on practicalities of law and the bar and things like that. I mean, I think the first year was one of the most beautiful years. You're studying contracts, property, old case law, the theories behind law. It was absolutely amazing, and I really, really loved it. And I think they're relevant going into international tax law. A lot of people ask me, why are you interested in law? That sounds kind of boring. Tax sounds even more boring. Accounting, things like that, I think they have preconceived notions. Certainly there's a lot of work to be done, and it takes some time, and that's just the way things are. But going forward, I took as many classes as I could. I got involved in internships. I spoke with attorneys. I tried to network as much as I could in the greater Texas area. I spent some time in D.C. as well. And speaking with my friends from college at the same time, I feel like I focused a lot on classics and philosophy in college. So technically my degree is in government and the social sciences. However, I feel like my focus was philosophy. I wrote my senior thesis on Hegelian dialectics and U.S. voting laws. Of course, voting laws and voting rights. So of course those are kind of go into the confluence of law. Going forward in law school, after the first year, I interned and externed at a Court of Appeals in Texas, 13 Court of Appeals. I made some great friends there. I had an awesome experience. I got to understand law, how the judicial process goes. I got to attend a lot of hearings, both on the appeals level and the trial level. I really, really enjoyed it. In the second year, I took constitutional law because it was one of the required classes that was required in the first semester of the second year of law school, 2L year. I love that class so much. I spent a good chunk of my childhood, and of course my teenage years, talking about it. I read lots of books about the Supreme Court. I had basically learned the case law of the Commerce Clause up to that point, to 2010, pretty much down pat. I mean, I remember reading it, and I was like, yeah, I read this when I was, a teenager. I got this totally down pat. I mean, when I say teenager, of course, I started law school at age 20, so arguably 19 is a teenager. But I mean, I was studying it in late middle school and high school, and I really, really loved it. In Texas, for the second year, I ended up taking, several classes required, things like that, things that would be useful for the bar as well. But also, I ended up taking other classes, such as a due diligence class with our new dean, whose name was Andrew Morris, and that ended up leading to me developing a relationship with him. We started talking about philosophy and law and stuff like that. He was interested in it. And then I went over to the second summer of the second year of law school, and I spent some time in the initial part of the summer, like a little over a week in the DC area, and then I came back to the DFW area, and I externed, and then it turned into an internship later on in the fall semester of the second year of law, of the third year of law school. But this is the second summer of law school, and I took an externship at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Really loved it. The team was awesome, and they were willing to talk about. One of them had worked at the IRS. They were willing to talk about all sorts of things. We had a really awesome time, and I'd go to lunch with half the attorneys on the team every single day. We had an awesome development, and I really, really enjoyed it. And going from there, I went over to, I learned as much as I could. I also took an oil and gas class that summer. Towards the end of the summer, I ended up I was an internship at the Texas Attorney General's Department of Public Finance, which I learned a whole lot. It was very interesting. It was very regulatory based, but on Texas regulations, which is sort of different from the federal regulations. But of course, the federal regulations play into things. We talked about MUDs, which are municipal utility districts, and kind of built off that. And then going to the second semester of law school, the third year of law school, the fall semester, I was taking classes again. I got interested with Andrew Morris, who sort of became a mentor of a sort with me, and Dean Morris. His name was, yes, he was the dean, and Dean Morris. I ended up taking this class that was a cross-registration class at the George Bush School of Government, and it was on, we actually renamed the class, but basically it was trade in North America is how I would describe it. We divided into two groups. It was an awesome collaboration between Bush School of Government and the Texas A&M University School of Law. Awesome experience. I made a lot of good friends, actually, that visited me when I was at the University of Amsterdam. And then I ended up, through Dean Morris, we got a trip over to Mexico, but that was in February of 2016, which was the second semester of the third year of law school, 3L year. And from that trip, I got introduced to international business. We talked a lot about NAFTA, things like that. Trump, of course, hadn't been elected yet. People were talking a lot about that. A lot of people didn't expect it to happen. And I learned so much there. And it was an awesome experience. We were around San Miguel de Allende. We were actually in the countryside, but we were near San Miguel de Allende in the state of Guanajuato. And like I said, my parents were anthropologists, and they really were excited about that because they focused a lot on the Maya. I mean, that was their anthropology career was focusing on the Maya. Of course, I mean, they'd studied Egypt and, Polynesia and Karl Woodvogel and things like that. But I mean, they were really excited for me to go there to practice my Spanish. My parents have published in Spanish, and so I would say their Spanish is excellent. And but I grew up in Texas primarily, but I actually picked it up while I was growing up in Texas because it was useful. We spoke a little bit at home. I digress a little bit, but it was just to say that going back to Mexico was a great experience because I actually hadn't been there since high school. I believe the last time was 2008. And then I went over there. I ended up becoming a research assistant for Dean Burns, William Burns, who was a true hero. He had transferred over from San Diego over to our law school, Texas A&M. He's one of the greatest people. I'm almost in constant contact with him every single day of the week, and I still am ever since then. I really have enjoyed his mentorship and everything he's had to offer me. I ended up becoming a research assistant with him. We talk about things from excuse me. We talk about things from the Byzantine Empire, taxation, the history of the Byzantine Empire, the walls of Byzantium, and later to be Constantinople, like the treaties that the Dutch signed with the English during the Anglo-Dutch Wars in the 1600s. He went to University of Amsterdam, and he suggested that I go over there because he had a friend named Dennis Weber. And but before I get to that, I did another internship at the Waco Division for the Western District of Texas Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Mansky. That was a great experience. That was during my Christmas break. So basically, I just they had the Christmas days off, and I had New Year's off. But that whole winter break, I was working over there, and that was a great experience. And the semester before, I was interning as well. And I had some personal things going on with the family. My grandmother passed away, who I am thankful that I developed a good relationship. She was in the Dallas area. She lived in Dallas. She was born from Dallas, of course, and I like talking about her a lot. We used to talk about Dante's Inferno. She used to teach Dante's Inferno at the university in Dallas, and she's an excellent woman. I called her, usually 3 times a day. So I'd call her, we'd wake up. She was a very early morning riser. I was as well. We'd wake up, we chatted up a little bit, sometimes even an hour in the morning. We just have the phone on. We talk about everything. And I just want to say that was part of my education, part of my upbringing. And even when I was at Harvard, I would talk to her every day. I have fond memories of talking about King Lear and Shakespeare's plays when I was just sitting under a tree in Harvard Yard in front of Siebert Hall. That was a beautiful memory. But anyway, she had passed away that semester, so that's sort of like it was a time of reflection. But I think it's very important to me to recognize that she was part of my education as well, both on a personal level and both on an educational level, because she did teach me a lot about the classics and we talked a lot about Dante's Inferno. I've handwritten letters for her. Just outlining Dante's Inferno to a beautiful extent when we talk about Swann's Way, Marcel Proust, and how Madeline's can remember things. And she was just a beautiful woman in many respects. And I just wanted to say, I feel like if I'm talking about myself, I just talk about my grandma. I talk about my parents. I mean, there's certainly lots of people who have influenced me along the way, and she's one of them. But anyway, I went over to Mexico in early February 2016, and then in March we did a class in the Cayman Islands with Andrew Morris, Dean Andrew Morris, he said in an email, I can now call him Andy since I graduated, so that's actually kind of fun. And he suggested that I took this class in the Cayman Islands. It's interesting to me that I mentioned my grandma. I remember one day I was sad, and one of my friends was really nice, and he suggested, "Hey man, you look kind of down." And we started talking it up, and he said, "Had you signed up for this class in the Cayman Islands? It looks amazing." Because I thought about taking it the year before, and I said, "No, I haven't taken it yet. I mean, I was thinking about it. I wanted to take it the year before, but just things didn't line up." And he said, "Well, you should totally take it this year." And I think I remember he's like, "You seem sad. This might cheer you up." And it was one of the best things I've ever done. We got to meet so many firms. I believe, well, no, there was no one from Cadwallader, Wickham, Taft, but there were some people from Alabama who were going to Cadwallader, Wickham, Taft. And then there were the big accounting firms, Ernst & Young, PwC, the firm that's famous in the Cayman Islands. We were told, I don't know if this is 100% true, that John Grisham novels were banned in the Cayman Islands. However, I remember at our hotel, there was a guy reading a John Grisham novel, not the firm, but it was a John Grisham novel, and one of the professors from Alabama commented and said, "You're not supposed to have that here, you're in the Caymans." But anyway, I just thought that was funny. Going forward, I learned a lot from the Cayman Islands trip, and I became a research assistant for Dean Burns. One thing led to another. Things are really escalating quickly. Of course, I have my other classes on the side as well, and I'm auditing some classes at the same time. And I learned so much in the Cayman Islands, offshore finance. I became a research assistant for Dean Burns. Of course, we were talking about the Byzantine Empire, the Dutch Empire, taxation, Egypt. He had some stuff he brought back from Egypt, some tourist paraphernalia, things like that. And, like a little scroll of the Egyptian pharaohs, King Tut and whatnot. And then we went over to, I became a research assistant, working on the Greek tax code, which has recently been revised, and they were working on revisions in Greek Parliament. I was reading the Greek text in Cyprus as well, because my mother's family is from Greece. Of course, that's a key aspect of all this. And then I went over to that. It was an incredibly busy summer. I took the Texas bar. I studied I took 9 classes at the International Bureau of Fiscal Documentation, which was one of the busiest summers I ever had in my life. A lot of stuff getting ready to move to Amsterdam because I had applied. Then I hadn't taken any tax classes formally in law school. And they wanted me to take these 9 classes, so I'd be eligible to go to the program at the University of Amsterdam. I ended up taking them. I passed them all, and I would say with flying colors. With the exception of one class, I think I got a B. But anyway, so they were all like 95 and above, I believe. And I think somewhere 100. I was kind of happy because I never really studied tax formally. I was a research assistant, all this stuff, but I was learning a lot. Fast forward, I went back to Austin for a little less than a month, and I flew over to Amsterdam the day before my birthday. My first full day in Amsterdam was August 23rd, 2016, which was my 24th birthday. I graduated law school, and I didn't mention that at age 23. I was the youngest person since Elton Heider, I believe the 4th. I graduated in the 1940s, and he went over to Japan to become an attorney during the Japanese war crimes. And the joke is, he never really did anything after that in his life, but he did donate an amazing amount of collection of art to Texas A&M University School of Law, which were set up when our school made the transition. Actually, they weren't set up right away my first year there, but he or his family or his estate donated so much beautiful art. I mean, we had judges, the British judges. We even had British judges from Calcutta in I think either the 1800s or 1700s, because they weren't photographs, but they were just amazing historical events in the U.S. Like the Congress, like a painting of the Congress and the Emancipation Proclamation was presented. British judges going back for centuries. There's a photo of Leviathan. I just thought it was awesome. There was a warrant. I believe it was a copy from the era of a warrant for the arrest of Queen Elizabeth. Excuse me, for the Queen Mary of Scots. So it was a real warrant. I don't think it was the original one, but it was like they made several copies when they sent for her arrest. And this was one of the copies. So this was an original document from that was a warrant for the arrest of Queen Mary of Scots. I thought that was absolutely awesome. I used to study under it all the time, under all these things. There was this judge from Calcutta that I studied under. I just thought it was so cool because you read about the cows contracts, or all these cases, cases from the 1500s, 1400s. They might even just be a paragraph long sometimes, or at least how the excerpt comes out in the book. And sometimes it may be the whole case, like a paragraph long. The Rose of Avalon, right? It's great. Anyway, I went to the International Bureau of Physical Documentation that was doing an LLM in conjunction with the University of Amsterdam. Amazing people: Joanna Wheeler, Bruno da Silva, Dennis Faber. Absolutely awesome stuff. I really, really loved it. Gosh, I couldn't speak enough to that because I was sort of coming without a tax background. I was very interested. I'm very motivated. I'll sit down for hours. I'll sleep 4 hours a night every day of the week, even less. I'll get stuff done. I want to learn as much as I can. I did that, and then the program officially ended on October 28th or 27th, 2017, and we worked as hard as we could. It was a great team. It was an advanced LLM. And then I went back to Boston, just did a normal LM, Boston University. So finished my advanced LLM in international taxation at the University of Amsterdam in October 2017. So it was a little over a year program. However, that's sort of a grace period because, if you fail, you're allowed to retake classes. So actually, I'd formally given in my thesis at the late July 2018 and, 2017. Sorry, something just came up on my phone. And 2017, excuse me. And then I started in either late August or early September for the university, Boston University. I did my tax LM. It was a great tax LM. I was traveling a lot because I had a lot of interviews, a lot of engagement, and I had to fly back to Europe for graduation and other things that I was doing, which was an awesome experience. I really loved it, and made a lot of friends, both outside of the school and inside the school. I learned a lot. Of course, and it's always it's always a personal journey, but also an educational journey, technical journey. I like to say I'm good at research. Good in the sense that I love research. I will sit down. I love going through Westlaw, LexisNexis, the IBFD, International Bureau of Physical Documentation. I love just reading articles. I mean, in law school, I used to spend my Friday nights just like reading as much as I could and gaining as much info as I could. One of my interviews, I had lots of interviews. Almost over 20, possibly over 30 interviews just in one semester. If you include like the callbacks and things like that. Possibly over 40, actually, if you're including like all the individual interviews. And from San Francisco, DC. I remember one day in DC, when I came down to Crystal City in DC, I had like 10 interviews in one day. It was just from 9 a.m. to like 6 p.m. nonstop. I had like a brief break for lunch, like just go. You're like after the interview, you go to the restroom, or you maybe don't even have time to go to the restroom. And then it was a tough decision. I ended up choosing PwC WNTS, and that, in a short nutshell, is what got me here. I had genuine curiosity. I love, if you ask my friends from JD or any program, I love talking about philosophy, how it relates, and not just like kind of navel gazing or how many angels are on the top of the pen, but like all of it, and like how it relates to society. It really makes me happy, and like Hegelian dialectics. It's hard to sum up with sometimes, but a genuine curiosity for the world around me and learning. And this is kind of what led me. It's the genuine curiosity that I think my parents and family instilled in me. And I sort of have like a love, and I hope I can serve people at the same time and learn. And that's what I want to do.